time, I guess.
This long and this wide, and we've got enough information to confirm.
Well, welcome everybody.
Hello.
I'm back. Only the council missed me, not the rest of you.
We missed you.
Okay. So, I have bad news, and I have good news. Bad first. Our speaker lives in Trenton, and the 401 was closed because of a wonderful snowstorm. We have one council member who lives in Brighton, and she says she was gone from home for 2 hours, came back 10 centimeters, and was lucky to make it home from Trenton from her shopping trip. So, our speaker, Bob Dawes, has rebooked for June. We'll be guaranteed, hopefully, of good weather then. And the good news is, Ann and I are stepping into the breach. Ann's going to do a wonderful presentation on organizing a family reunion. And from the looks of things, I'd say she has some practice in it.
It would have been a more organized presentation if I didn't just know today I was doing it.
Well, this is it. She expanded it today on virtually, 3 hours notice? So, she's a trooper.
And I heated chili for dinner.
Yeah.
Busy girl.
Which I didn't. I left the chili cold for my husband to heat himself.
Pancake day.
Okay. Our agenda's not totally fixed up, but anyway, I will be talking about my trip to Roots Tech last week. They had 14,000 registrants for the main body of the week, and on Saturday, which is also called Family Day, they had 20,000 people there.
Did you meet them all?
No, I did not meet them all. In fact, I avoided all the kids and their hula hoop contests and their face painting booths and their limbo contests and stuff like that. And they had kids there from a month up to I don't know, we'll say 18 years for lack of a more definite statistic. It was fabulous. They had 4 great key presenters. They had Patricia Heaton, the actress from Everyone Loves Raymond and Something in the Middle.
Malcolm?
I don't know whether it's Malcolm. She's the mother and
Just the middle. The middle.
yeah, and she was the Raymond's wife, and Everybody Loves Raymond. Well, she did a very good talk on her family, good Roman Catholic family. I think she's one of 12. She's only got 4. She feels that she's failed the family. But she was very personable, and I'm going to show you a link, if I can figure it out. Anne may have to do her computer for me. The 4 key presentations are available on the rootstech.org website. You just go to the front page and you scroll down and it says 2019 presentations, and they're listed right there. The second person they had was Derek Huff from Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
And he was very interesting as well. The third one I didn't go to because I figured I'd be a puddle of tears, and that was Saru Brierley. He's the fellow whose story is told in the movie Lion. Okay, and how we use Google Earth to find his family somehow. And that one I will watch when I've got a box of tissues at home on the computer. And the fourth one, who's heard of Jake Shimabukuro? He's Hawaiian. He has got to be the premier ukulele player in the world. What he can do with a ukulele, incredible. It sounds like 5 guitars put together. It really does. And he did a very interesting talk about his parents being Japanese in Hawaii, and what they had to give up for him to have the life he has. And he did Bohemian Rhapsody for us on the ukulele. Incredible. You have to watch that one for sure. I actually knew about him because I took ukulele lessons about 5 years ago. So that one I made sure I went to. There were 300 lectures. I didn't get them all, obviously. But I will touch on some of the announcements that came out from the conference as we go along. So, not to embarrass anybody, but if it's your first time here, put your hand up. Yay. Not to embarrass you, but I'm going to ask you to stand up and tell us your name and the surnames you're researching. Because although we're a small audience, you'd be amazed how many people have found cousins here. So, take the lady on the right there.
So my name is Marty Cameron, so I'm researching the Camerons, and a miracle, I found my cousin here.
Success #1.
There you go. But I'm also researching dampiers and wingers and cobras and all those group of people that came across the river there, and I've lost the dampiers in England, so I don't know how to do Facebook in England. Like, I can't seem to do it. Anybody have any ideas how to do that?
Facebook?
Like, I'm sure I could find them if I could get to Facebook in England, but I don't know how to do that. And yeah, so we're just...
I've been on Facebook and found Family History Society group pages, no problem.
From other countries?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I should try to do that then, because...
So if you have an idea of the county or the rough area, no? Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.
But if there's groups that don't have a Facebook page, they might have a website with an email address.
Well, I was actually looking for dampier, and then I thought, well, of course, I'm going to find my own cousins in Canada, but I wanted to find ones in England. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Might have to go more traditional route and try some of the family trees on Ancestry and Family Search to see if the Dampier name shows up in the different trees and see if that helps.
I'm actually looking for live people because...
But once you have the actual, some of the ancestors going back of yours, then you might get a place in England you could start from.
I have all that. Thank you, but...
Well, if you have that, you would have an approximate area in England to start searching through a family history society.
okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. And the cousin.
Hi, my name's Laura Simone. My maiden name is Cameron, and that's how Marty and I related. So on my dad's side, I'm looking for Camerons. And on my mom's side, I'm looking for Allens and
Harrington. Willoughby, I got a Willoughby connection way back over in Atlantic County, but the other ones I don't.
How do you spell Allen?
Allen.
Oh. So I noticed just a few minutes ago there's an Allen with the I in history upstairs.
There's a lot of Allens with I around in the
This area.
Yeah.
I know I'm related to 1,000 of them.
Marg Allen with an I. He's one of my mother-in-law's best friends.
That doesn't count genealogically, though.
Sure does, if we have to be the right family. Okay, I want to mention that you have to save the date, May 11th. I've said this before and I'll say it again. And we are going to have another committee meeting now that I'm back from all my wanderings. B, you're up
Want me to do it
now.
from here?
Sure.
Since we don't have a mic, might as well, right? Or do you want me?
Better if you're on the camera.
Yes, that's right.
You put on your makeup today?
Just for the camera. Just for the camera.
No.
Came from work, guys. I came from work. Okay, what I do is I read out the correspondence that we get in, whether it's snail mail or internet. It's internet anymore. And I'll read a date. Remember that date, because that's how I can find it. Mind you, there's only 3 today, so it's not too bad. The first one comes on who am I in? Oh, yeah. On the 3rd of February of this year, and it comes from Melbourne, Australia, Graham Caldwell. My friend's grandparents lived in Oshawa, and we have circumstantial evidence that they married there very late in their late 80s. But I can't work out how to check this online, because Canadian marriage records seem to only be currently up to 1948. I'd be most grateful if you could provide any advice on how to proceed in order to cite a 1953 marriage record in Ontario Province. The target persons are Sidney Ernest Howlett, 1873 to 1964, and Helen Pierce, 1872 to 1962, both buried in Oshawa. And that's from Graham and Jeanette Caldwell. The next one comes, this was the 28th of January, so they are out of sync as far as dates go. And it comes to us from Clifford Weimer, Weirmeir. I hope to have contacted the right place for help. I'm trying to check a Sunderland Cemetery record for a burial of Lewis Sawdon, S-A-W-D-O-N. I suspect he's an infant commemorated as Lois Sawdon. How or who do I contact to pursue this? The dates of the grave marker are the same as my man, Lewis, L-O-U-I-S, Sawdon, born 1872 and died 1945. The next one comes this 26th of February, and it comes from Philip Moore, Overland Park, Kansas. Regarding grave reference, and he gives our grave references, W0127-2. I'm looking for the grave of an ancestor, Frederick Christian Schell, S-C-H-E-L-L, born 1764, died in either 1817 or 1830. Thanks for any help in this regard, Dr. Philip Moore.
Anybody recognize any of those names? Let me know as well. Okay.
So does somebody do this research?
We do have a research committee. Wave your hands, guys. They help you as time permits.
We have the office open the third and fourth Friday mornings from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. of the month. So people are welcome to come in. It's upstairs in the boardroom up here. It's a little messy at the moment because we flooded out. They had to rip off part of the wall. And
I'm going to write it down.
it's the third and fourth Friday mornings, 10 to 1
Of the month.
of each month.
So do you pick up these letters then when you address them, or what do you?
Yeah,
These are
already, these have probably already been handled.
Or you can just come in and we'll, talk one-on-one kind of thing.
Unless someone jumps up and says, "That's my cousin," and then we'll let them do it.
Yes. And also, the office is open just ahead of the meeting at 6:45.
Okay, so for the treasurer's report, our current account as of today, the balance is $4,498.53. From February 1st until today, we've had $896.44 withdrawals and $2,341.07 deposits.
And 7 cents.
And 7 cents. It could come in handy.
Okay. OGS News. I had something on that. I guess it didn't like it. That's okay. We'll ignore it.
Well, can you? allocation. There's
Oh.
fatal error.
I don't like fatal errors. Okay, so,
You talk about that news and I'll try to get it back.
okay,
I'll close something and maybe that'll help.
maybe that'll work. Thank you.
Got all kinds of
Not
stuff.
my computer this time, it's Ann's.
Got umpty-9 things
Okay.
open here.
When you came in, I had my main slide up there. Did you happen to see the new OGS logo? Okay. Did you happen to notice the leaves? Dan pointed this out to me.
Yeah.
One of the bunch of leaves is the shape of Ontario. Yeah, with a couple other leaves just to make it visual. Yeah. So, for Roots Tech, the board of OGS put together and got a new logo, kind of rebranding us as Ontario Ancestors. And the whole idea is that they are attempting to make us sound more flexible and less snooty and all that sort of stuff, and attract those, I forget how many million of the Americans who have Canadian heritage. And when they say that people came from Canada, they usually meant Upper Canada, which is Ontario. So they had a very successful booth at Roots Tech. Every time I went by, it was always crowded. And so a lot of interest was shown, and I think it may be a smart move on their part. But we have to get used to calling ourselves Ontario Ancestors and using a new logo, which is going to be rolled out on the website and on all the publications over the next little while. There it is right there. You see Ontario? Dan pointed that out. I didn't notice. But that's
How
cool.
far down are we now? Oh, yes. But
No, let's come back to that one. Yay!
There, okay.
Press F5 and it'll be big.
Oh, F5. There you go.
There we go. So the other news out of OGS, I'm gonna have to stop saying OGS. That's another reason they changed. OGS also means Ohio Genealogical Society, Oklahoma Genealogical Society, Oregon Genealogical Society. So they're getting away from a confusing acronym.
Well, we were probably around first. We should make them change.
Oh, good luck. Okay, they probably have more members. Maybe not. But the one news release that happened in February was the fact that Family Search, OGS, and we're going to have to, they still use the old logo, and Library and Archives Canada are in partnership to digitize the Vernon directories. Now, the Vernon directories, oh, it is here, good. They published yearly from 1890 to 2014, except in 2010 when they changed ownership. OGS was the one who managed to get permission to do this. And they gave us total permission to do whatever we wanted with the Vernon directories as long as it was free, which fits perfectly in Family Search and Library and Archives Canada. Family Search is going to digitize, and presumably they may ask the branches to help double checking any indexing that happens. But this will be a perfect way to see your families in between censuses. You know, so if you don't know when your family went to South Dakota, this may help.
What are the Vernon directories?
They are, it's kind of like a phone book, but they really don't put in the phone numbers. So you've got the name of the head of household and the address. Very frequently you have their occupation. You may even get their employer.
And the spouse.
You may get the spouse. I've seen it with and I've seen it without.
Whether they have a telephone or not?
In the later years, yes. I've used the earlier years, so you can't always go by me.
And whether or not they own the house or are renting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And sometimes the directories then have, what do you call it, like a reverse?
Well, streets.
Yeah.
It goes by the streets and tells you who lives at each address?
To use both.
And it also has a reverse by phone number.
I haven't used anything with that. but
Yeah, so if you had a phone number from a period of time, you could look up the phone number.
Canada
411.
Canada 411.
Search.
No,
No,
That's
but
just
the
current.
historical, yeah.
Yeah, that's just current.
So about the Vernon directories, one of the nicest things about them is that street organization, because one of the techniques that you're supposed to use when searching for people, your relatives in a town, is to look and see who lived in the same neighborhood as your ancestor. Because often, the cousin might live down the street, or they might marry the person who lived in the same neighborhood or something like that. So it's really interesting to look, if you see two people with the same last name and they're living on opposite sides of the town, there's a lesser chance that they might be relatives than if they're living next door to each other. Right? So it's very handy to be able to look up and down the street and say, oh, look, there's two cousins and an uncle right there.
Before the car, people would marry whoever was in the same neighborhood. My grandparents did, they were only a block away from each other.
I haven't run into that in my family. Unfortunately, they tended to marry like somebody in Manitoba married someone from Ontario. That was my grandparents. Somebody who lived in Windsor married someone who grew up in Trenton. That was my parents.
Do they only cover the cities or towns, or do they cover the rural areas?
I believe that most of Ontario is covered.
I did see some with rural routes and the names of all the people in each rural route.
Yeah.
Not always.
I don't know how well it's covered. You could do a study.
Well, anyway, salesmen loved them because they knew when they were coming to the house,
Yeah,
I guess, the name of the person and say, hello, Mrs. Smith.
yes.
My father had a bunch of them. He was an electrician who did a lot of traveling around to various addresses and found them handy.
Yes.
He kept them in his truck.
So we'll look forward to that.
And we have a lot of them in our office upstairs. We want to see how they look.
How long did they keep doing this?
1914.
Oh, 2014.
2014.
But
But a lot of them weren't, like, we always use them in real estate, we always, for these purposes, but I think it was around 2000 that it dropped off. And the last few years, like, they were getting astronomically priced. And I know at one time it was like $400 a year. And then they actually started telling us that the books were leased. And so you paid $400 and then you had to give them back the book at the end of the year. And because they were wanting people to keep buying more because people tended to hold them and they were raising the price so much. But they were invaluable. I've got a good collection
Well, it was
myself.
so much work making one because somebody had to go door to door with a clipboard.
Yeah. Well, Bessie Gannon used to do it.
She did.
Yeah.
I didn't know
And,
that.
yeah,
How about that?
yeah. And you got paid so much a person you enumerated, if I remember. It was piddly amount, but
Yeah.
But they listed also all the adults, all working adults that lived in the house.
Yeah.
So
So you
all
can
their
often
children.
tell when the children started jobs.
Or at school.
Sometimes
They also
scholars,
listed
yeah.
scholars.
Yeah.
But anybody over 18, I think,
Yeah.
started getting listed.
Yeah.
And if they shared the same household, even though they were working, it would be listed.
And if they were in a boarding house, then the address one is really good. Because there'd be different last names.
And it would give exact location on the street. It would be north of Roslyn Road between Roslyn and Somerville, for example.
Yeah.
It would isolate.
There is a bit
Near
of
that
difficulty when they
address.
start renumbering streets because of infill of houses and too many
Right.
houses for the number of numbers.
Yes.
So 71 River Road becomes 871 River Road, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, our picture didn't come through, sorry. Art Taylor of Upper Canada Genealogy is going to do the OGS webinar this Thursday night at 7 p.m. You don't have to be a member of OGS to watch. His topic is build a custom keyword list for your digital genealogy files. There is a description of this on the OGS website if you want to know more. I had put some in the presenter notes, but I can't get at those right now. So just go on the front page. We had the OGS page up just a few minutes before the meeting started, and I saw a square about the OGS webinar. You just click on that. Okay, Roots Tech. All my pictures are not coming through. Isn't that terrible?
It's because it's on the USB key.
So, I'll tell you a couple of things. I jotted down a few notes. So, Ancestry made 3 big announcements about their site. Now, who has subscriptions to Ancestry? Okay. I don't know if these will work on the library edition. Probably not, because 2 out of the 3 are linked to Ancestry DNA. So who has Ancestry DNA kit done? Okay.
The library probably doesn't.
No, no. They'd have trouble swabbing its cheeks. Okay. So they have, let me give you the short one
It's
first.
okay, they're sped.
Or spit. Lovely. Okay, before this generates any further. Okay, they brought in, here's the smallest one. They brought in something called tree tags. And maybe I should try and demonstrate this. Okay, give me a minute. Escape.
You want a new
Found it.
sign there, yeah.
Found it? Okay.
Well, that's our son Andrew, you don't care about him.
That's a great picture.
What?
Caught in a snowstorm.
Try again. Hit the.
No,
try
no,
again.
it says it can't find Google. Yeah,
Oh.
just click try again, maybe it just,
Sometimes
connect to Google.
Sometimes it just is a weak wireless, and it does work if you try again.
do you want me to look to see if it's connected?
Yeah, maybe you better help with that in.
Okay.
Wikipedia seems to be.
Well, that was already there.
That was already
I think.
up, yeah.
That was already there. Okay. It says available, but it doesn't say connected.
You put the password on.
Oh, the 5, I put a password on. Is that what they tried to get to?
I betcha.
Oh, yes, I'll bet you that was it.
676.
Don't use that N if you're on the 5.
What should it, this is 2.4.
It's the 2.4, then you can use that, yes.
Well,
Or if you switch to the 5, it's a lot easier. I just changed it on there.
why did you do this? I can't read your writing anyway.
6, 7.
Is that an H or a 4? 4.
4133.
And see if it connects.
No, you don't want to. Okay.
At least you left that here. which is
Yes,
good.
yes, okay.
Says it's connected?
Yeah, try again. Type your URL in and try again there.
Okay.
Well, you're on Wikipedia, and it's going to take away your Wikipedia connection.
Oh,
Do you need the
terrible.
Wikipedia?
Do a plus, do a
Well,
plus.
then, I don't, that's just the main page of Wikipedia.
Oh, I
It's
thought
really
you
easy to
wanted
find.
I thought you wanted it. There we go.
I probably bumped it by accident.
Like you said.
Typed in ancestry.ca.
Yeah, I saw it detected in,
Name that car. Think so? Picture taken during the war overseas then?
I don't know. The grill looked like it.
Yeah, well, they do still have that split, don't they?
So you were the first Trimble to sign up, eh?
I guess.
Don't say that. I don't want, you don't want me to save your passwords on my computer. There it goes.
So, when you click on someone in your family tree, or you're on their profile, you can go to this box here that has the crossed wrench and hammer. In other words, tools, okay? And you can add tags now to that person. So, tree tag, this is in beta, so they're still working on it. But they've got different types of tags. So for instance, you can put in a tag if it's a cousin or something that you've matched on DNA. Common DNA ancestor, DNA match, or DNA connection. They've also got reference tags, like military service. So they've pre-populated a few of these tags.
But you can add more.
That's this one up here.
This is left-handed.
And then the researching tags, actively researching, or this person is my brick wall, or I have finished with this person. There's one called complete at the very bottom there.
Why would a guy named Brown be a brick wall? I don't get it.
Jeez, I don't know. You think it's so simple to find him. You can also go in and put notes on this person. So, only I can see that. The tags people coming to your tree can see.
Where would it be? Like if you put the tag, where does it show?
Well, I'm going to go to the person's profile in a minute and we'll see. So you can also, I'll finish with this part first. So you can also put in notes. You can also put in comments. And I believe those might be viewable. Sorry, I didn't finish the tree tags. You can create your own tags. So you can stick in a name and describe it. So you remember what you called it and why. So it could be something like my Trimble line. It's the only thing I can think of. But I'm sure when you get using it, you'll figure out all your use. So now when I go to his profile, you can add tags here too. Oh, when you do it here, you got a hypothesis as well. Okay. Maybe I didn't save it correctly. Maybe this goes down further. And I just can't see it. Yeah. Got a feeling that I'm just not seeing a save button. Sorry, folks. We can tag from the profile as well. As you can see, it comes in and out. And we'll stick the brick wall on it again.
If you do a control minus, you can zoom out. Maybe that will help.
Oh, just to make the screen smaller?
Yeah. It doesn't work?
Not working for me, Ann.
All right, never mind.
Yeah, it was a good suggestion, though.
It usually works.
Let's do it this way.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why it's a beta.
This probably is why it's in beta.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's where you complain. Give feedback. Okay.
Maybe you have to click somewhere in that white area first before it'll scroll down on the white side, because it's scrolling down on the other side that you weren't wanting.
Yeah, it's only going down as far as brick walls. It's not going any further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I'd had time to play more with this. I may give you a little more next month. Going on to the two other things that they talked about. They go with the DNA. So in your DNA matches, let's make this. You can see, I'm not sure if I should be showing this. I'll just stick with this top part where you really can't tell who the person is from the username. They've improved things here in that they have moved, instead of having to click on the person's name and go see their profile, you now have the shared DNA right here on the matches page. You also have tags as to whether or not they found a common ancestor between your tree and that person's tree. I find that very interesting with only 8 people in the tree, but, and it's a third cousin. We'll see. You've got my notes that I have made as to which line I feel this person belongs to. You have the ability to create groups of people. Now, according to my notes here, you can also do color coding and labels, which I'm not going to attempt because I don't see where you do it. They also have something called ancestry through lines, and I believe that's out on the main page right here. So again, it's in beta. I think they rushed to announce all this stuff at Roots Tech. Now the through lines, come on. Oh, and I'm so used to going in the other direction with my Mac. Explore through lines. Just go there, will ya?
It is a touch screen. You could just touch the screen if you don't want to use the...
Now she does.
Now you do. Okay.
Does that help?
Well, it seems to, yes.
I hate those little sliders.
Okay, let's do this guy. So in this through lines, these your DNA's results are linked to your tree and others' trees to see if there are common people in there. So in here, they've used relationships. There's my second great-grandfather. I got 2 DNA matches on this great uncle. Suggested relationships are in dotted lines. You still have to do some proving and go looking at the records and what have you. But it looks like this is what they found out in the trees to suggest how this person and this person who match me are linked to me on a tree. So they're doing, they call them through lines. Hannah, I got 6 DNA matches, 3 down from Minnie and 3 down from George. And then I go back to the siblings and stuff. And you can get it in a list format as well if you want.
Nancy, in an earlier slide, there was those centimorgans, 139. Can you describe quickly what that means, the centimorgans?
Okay, a centimorgan is although not technically a physical distance, it is it is easiest to think of it as a length, a measurement of length on a chromosome. So if you got big chunks that you share with someone, the closer you are likely to be related.
So then you'd have lots of centimorgans.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay? So if, for instance, it had said, we share 20 centimorgans on 10 segments, it's probably garbage, because at an average of 2 centimorgans in a segment, it's not really going to be very significant. But if it says 100 centimorgans on one segment, that's really significant. Okay? Ancestry does not have a chromosome browser for you to visualize the chromosomes. The other websites do. But this is kind of how they're making up for it. They're doing some of the linking for you when it works.
I'd just like to add, though, be very careful when you're working with it. They are suggestions, and there's a lot of errors up there, too.
Well, they're only as good as trees.
But the thing is, even that, I have a Sarah Foley in my line, born in England, probably died in England, never left the place. They linked her up to a Foley family in Virginia, who also had a daughter, Sarah, about the right dates.
Oh,
And they just threw her in.
so they've thrown in hints as well.
There's hints in there. Also, I have ancestors where I know we'll say John Sutcliffe is the father. And they've taken somebody else, Robert Sutcliffe, and thrown that family in, so I've got a whole new set of ancestors suggested to me.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of errors in there. You gonna have to be
Yes.
careful.
yes,
There's a lot of good stuff, but a lot of errors.
very much so. Here's 28 centimorgans across 3 segments. Third cousin once removed. So that 2 there, that means there's 2 people between. They've just shortened it so that you can see more easily. So I have a Jennifer Beer down from a Sarah Collier. Now, I think Sarah Collier married a McClay. Let's have a look. Yep. McClay. Okay. So that's what happened with Ancestry. They made those 3 big announcements.
What is this root tech place that you visited?
Roots Tech is, okay, I'll back up. Roots Tech is the largest genealogical conference in the world. It's hosted by Family Search down in Salt Lake City in the big convention center there. The exhibit hall is bigger than this church, easily, probably 3 churches. And like I said, they had 300 classes over 4 days. Like 12 concurrent at each time slot.
So you traveled to Salt Lake?
Yes. It's my 4th time at Roots Tech. It is a pretty mind-blowing experience on your first trip.
Did you find any ancestors while you were there?
Well, no, but here's something. Who has the Family Search Family Tree app in their phone? Have you are you signed in?
No, not right now.
Not right now. Okay. Well, here's your homework. I want you to all go home, put some of your family tree on the familysearch.org family tree. You can upload from your program a GEDCOM file, or you can just build it by hand. They try to offer you suggestions. It is a 1 family tree. So if one of your ancestors is already built in there, they try and point it out to you so that you don't create a second one. And let me tell you, I spent quite a while last week at the Family History Library merging 7 people into one because they made it 7 times. And even I made duplicates because I didn't, when I built the person, I didn't put enough information on them, so they weren't sure it was the same person. But of course, after I added the spouse, all of a sudden I got duplicates coming out the wazoo.
Nancy,
But,
Ann's
yeah,
presentation isn't a mini presentation anymore, so I just thought I'd let you know it's 8:19.
okay. Okay, well, I will save some of this for more for the DNA group. But in the Family Search Family Tree app, if you're signed in, there's a button that says Find Cousins. And within 100 feet, if your cousin is also signed in and also has a tree on Family Search, it will tell you. So can you imagine in a conference of 14,000 people, if you look at your Find Cousins, and when you have Pennsylvania Quaker families the way I do, I think I had, I don't know if it's still there. I think I had like 9,000 out of 13,000 people were related to me. So on the last day of the conference, I bought a sandwich, I sat down at the lunch tables, and one gal started talking about this, and she asked the other gal for her name and found out that they weren't related. So I hauled mine out, and I was related to every last one of them. I mean, one was a gal, her family, and 2 kids, but the other ones were all singles. It was like 11th cousin 3 times removed, 9th cousin twice removed. I mean, nothing closer than a 6th cousin, but they were all related. It was quite an experience, because here I'm only related to Steve. Okay.
But that's something that everybody here should do. And then at a meeting,
Yes, yes.
and then at a meeting, we should all hit the button and see what happens.
Yes, it would be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah. And Steve and I are what, 6 cousins twice removed?
6 cousins.
Yeah, so, but they weren't all on my Quakers. There was actually one on my Hillman line from down Middlesex County way. So I'm going to quit there. And did I have any other news? Oh, FamilySearch.org has images and index to the 1926 Canadian Census of the Prairies. Nobody seems to have announced this except John Reed on his blog. So when you go in, it's best to go by location. So go into Canada and then look at all record sets and go looking for the 1926 census. Because I tested it, I found my Vince. Okay, who lived in Manitoba. Anything else I need to say here? I already talked about Roots Tech. You don't need to hear any more about that. And I think at this point, okay.
That picture worked.
There.
That picture worked.
That picture worked. So it's break time while I get out of the way and let Ann take over for her presentation. Okay, so shall we say 10 minutes? 10, 15 minutes?
There are those snacks at the back.
And we have some snacks and drinks at the back there. And don't forget your draw tickets, your 50-50 draw tickets.
Yeah.
That picture.
Oh, it's my thing.
Okay. All right, I'll start then. So, my topic today, which started out before our speaker canceled to have been just supposed to be a little short one, but I'll say a bit more, is family reunions and how they can help you to do your genealogy. Organizing a family reunion is a fair amount of work, and so, there has to be some payback for it, right? So if you're a genealogist, you can get some payback for your work in organizing the family reunion, and hopefully some of your other relatives will help too. So I'll tell you first how Dan and I got started with our DeLong family reunions. We were at his parents' house one day, and they were reminiscing about the fact that they hadn't seen their cousins for a long time, and they knew they had a lot of cousins living in not that big of a radius, but people get busy, so we thought to ourselves, well, why don't we just have a picnic down at the park a few blocks away? And but then we thought, okay, well, who are we going to invite? Well, because they hadn't been keeping in touch with them, they didn't really know how to invite them. So we went to Dan's dad and we asked him, what are the names of all your aunts and uncles, to start with, which I had never met, but Dan had met a few of them. And it turned out that there were a lot of these aunts and uncles because his grandfather had 10 children. And so we started seeing how many of those actually lived in the Peterborough area where we're going to have the reunion, and started collecting addresses and asking those people to send us addresses. Of course, there was no internet at the time, so some of that was done by phone, and some of it was done by mail. And eventually we got a hold of maybe, I think we had about 40 people that came to the first reunion. And it was basically, you rented a picnic shelter and told people to bring food, and that was about it. But we decided that while they were there, we might as well collect some information so that we could contact more people if we decided to do it again. So we got a very long piece of that rolled up, I guess it was like butcher paper, only wide, and we just wrote the names of the 10 sets of aunts and uncles, well spaced on this paper, and brought pens and just left it laying around. And by the time we were finished, we had 130 names on that chart. So that was, and we didn't have to really do any work to get those names. The people just filled them all in. And they weren't all totally accurate. So as a genealogist, you can't just depend on people to just write down things and they're going to be all correct. But at least it was a start to give us an idea of who we would be looking for next time. So the first thing you need to do when you're going to do a family reunion is you have to think of what the scope of the reunion is going to be. So for that one, the scope was, we wanted Dan's first and second cousins. And of course the aunts and uncles that were still alive, some of them were not. Okay, so that was our scope. And for genealogy, if you've been into genealogy for a while, that might not be a good scope for you because you probably have done your research and you know who those people are already. But we hadn't done any genealogical research at that time, so for us it was a good scope for the first reunion. But it kind of gave us put a little fire under us, and we decided that the next time we would try to see if we could get some further out relatives. And I guess we kind of got carried away because in the meantime we'd been getting into genealogy. This kind of put a little fire on, so we joined the Genealogical Society, stuff. And so we decided that we were going to invite whoever we could find that had the name DeLong. Now, this might have been a mistake, because that's kind of too far in the other direction, right? So we had no idea of anything about Dan's ancestry, except that his grandfather lived in Peterborough and had a bunch of children, right? So we didn't know, because we had not done the research, who we really should invite that might be related to Dan. So in retrospect, we probably set too wide of a net for our second reunion, but it turned out to have a rather good result. Because what we did was we started looking up in phone books and things like that, and looking for people who had the last name DeLong, and there's no internet, we just started sending them letters. Of course, you got to buy stamps for that, so then it starts to cost you some money to do that. And we sent a letter to one person that we didn't know, and he sent us a letter back and said, well, you really should invite John Baldwin. He lives in Ohio, and he sent his address. So I said, okay, and I sent a letter to John Baldwin, and he sent me a letter back, and he says, well, I can't come, but I do have 5,000 pages of information about the DeLong family. Are you interested in having any of it? Well, of course, 5,000 pages was rather expensive to do, so he ended up sending me just the ones he thought might be related to Dan. So we got 1,000 pages. So I had to send him $70, I think, for that. So anyway, John Baldwin was a person who did not use a computer. He said computers made him retire, and so he wasn't going to use one. He had a lovely typewriter, and when people would send him information, if it went on a page he already had, he'd just retype the page, because he must have been a good typist. And his books had just got thicker and thicker and thicker, and he had a backup copy, though. He would, his local library had a bookshelf for him with all these huge binders about the DeLong family. So they wouldn't be in his house in case it caught fire. Anyway.
Your computer went to sleep.
So, our first reunion, 1981, this was the invitation, done on spirit duplicator paper, with the,
We used the school machine.
Yes, we used the school machine. But we bought our own paper. And by the second time, we had a computer with a dot matrix printer. It doesn't look as good, does it? Okay. And now, because of all this work we've been doing contacting people, we had a letter from a lady, her name was Barbara DeLong. She had 14 children, and so she was interested in having a family reunion just with her own family. So she contacted us because she said that her husband's ancestor, grandfather, was the brother of Dan's great-grandfather. So, and she was from Barrie. And so just inviting those people in doubled the size of our tree, right? It was great. And she was willing to help us organize the reunion. So it was wonderful. So if you get other people to help you organize, this is great. So at this point, by the time we did the third one, we were getting to be semi-serious genealogists. We still didn't have any idea about how genealogists are supposed to do things, right? But we knew that we wanted to collect information, and that it was a good idea to be organized, right? And so we sent out letters, and we kept copies of the letters in our so that we could talk about them if we were going to do another one to improve the letters. So I've got copies of those letters here, and we're still doing everything with stamps because there was still no internet. But then we decided, okay, so now we want some genealogists as well as just our cousins to come to this. So we're going to have to give them something. If you're going to invite a bunch of genealogists who don't even know if they might be related to you, you've got to provide them with something that's going to help them find out, for one thing, and have something for them to take away. So Dan started making, for each reunion we had, he started making newsletters. So this is for the 1994 reunion in Fort Perry that we had. And it would have pictures that people had given us in previous reunions, or little things about that we found out since. And we also had a questionnaire that we would give out about what would you like to see if we do another reunion. So we also brought, I should show some other thing. This is me. And this is Dan's tree. So we brought some interesting photographs, things that people might find of general interest. This old fellow here, somebody brought that to one of the reunions, and documents that, you know, should be really copied before they fell apart, maybe. Why would someone take their marriage certificate and fold it up in a little thing like this and stick it in their wallet, right? I don't know. Yes, so things like that. And so we started we thought, okay, the genealogists come, they'll be wanting to make copies. So we brought a photocopier and a generator. It was good for making coffee too, the generator. Okay, and at the time all our files were on paper, so we just took them out of the filing cabinet and put them in those banker boxes and brought them, and you'll see some of these pictures are like that. One of the things you have to decide when you're going to do a reunion is how much money do you want to spend? Because you can have an outside or an inside reunion, or a 2-day reunion, or like you can really get carried away. But if you have no idea how many people are going to come, sometimes that can be really expensive. And we decided that we didn't want to get into having accounting and stuff like that. And so the way that we did it was we asked people to come, we asked them to bring their lunch. They could either just bring their own lunch, or they could bring something they were willing to trade with people or share. We didn't make it a full potluck supper because we didn't know, like, these people had not met, a lot of them. So some people we found they would have 6 people from their family coming, so they would make a little potluck between them. Some people just brought a sandwich and a drink, and we had some tea and coffee and cold drinks that we just let people have. Okay, so this reunion was at a picnic shelter, and a lot of the ones we did were in picnic shelters. And the nice thing about these picnic shelters is they didn't really cost anything. You had to book them ahead of time, and you had to have a relative that lived in the town where the picnic shelter was, because that's the taxpayer, your tax dollars at work. The disadvantage, of course, if it could rain, right? And yes, your genealogical materials are under the shelter, but people are all sitting there very sadly. Okay. The other thing to consider is that there's really 2 kinds of people that are coming to your reunion. There are people who care about who is related to them, and then there are people who are just coming for a picnic, right? Okay, so you have to have something for both those kinds of people to do. So quite a few of our reunions were held in Peterborough at the zoo there. I don't know if you've ever been to the zoo in Peterborough, but if you have people that brought all their kids, the kids don't want to sit there and look through the photographs of great-grandmother and stuff like that, but they will go into the splash pool that they have there, and they'll go and look at the animals, and they have a field there where you can have events. And here's one of the events that we had. It's a tug of war, so like DeLong's against the Hendersons or something, so that sort of thing. And But some of the times, we did have the reunions in a hall. And one time, it was kind of strange thing that happened there. Why can I not see that picture of that one? Well, I'll find it later, but oh, here it is, yeah. Okay, so we rented this hall there, lovely tables in there, but it was a beautiful day, nobody wanted to sit in there. So then outside, there were no tables, so they fell out to sit around on the ground, or a few people brought lawn chairs. So, you know, if it had rained that time, it would have been a good choice, but, so you just don't know, and you just go with the flow, right? So, we also, we made lists, like we brought prizes, and we would give a prize for certain things. For instance, the person who came the furthest, we gave that guy a quart of oil. We thought that would be a good prize, but it actually didn't work out that well because he came by plane. Okay. Anyway, as time went on, we started getting a little more sophisticated. But oh, and I should mention that I brought copies of the newsletters, and these are all extra copies. So if anybody wants an example of one, if they're thinking of doing a reunion, or if you think you might be related to the DeLong family, you can just take one. And the other thing is, if you hold it in a town where there's a lot of your family members, sometimes you might get in the newspaper. So this one says, quite a surprise for Olive to find her true ancestors. And so a reporter came out and yeah, so. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do is, if you've got any information at the previous reunions, make sure you bring it to the next one. For instance, many people, we convinced them all to bring photographs, but a lot of the photographs weren't written on. Okay, so Dan just went around with his camera and he rephotographed everything he could find. And at the next reunion, he put those photographs out with a blank sheet underneath for people to fill in the names of the people in the photographs. Okay, so as time went on and we started having more computerized stuff going on in our family tree, we realized that Family Tree Maker could do some of the work for us. This is a custom report from Family Tree Maker, and it has all the addresses of the people, you know, or you could have one that had email addresses more recently, you know, so it does, you can do a lot of different reports, and this one turned out handy for organizing our reunion. So this is an example of one of the later reunion notices that we sent out. Okay, and I think after that was probably the last one, and after that we started sending them out by email and having a website, like a web page people could look on. Okay, so now these days, if you're trying to contact people, you wouldn't be using stamps and paper. So someone has already mentioned Facebook, but there are lots of different ways to do that. And even if you are using Facebook or email list or something like that, it still is a good idea to have some kind of a page that people can go to and look. So it's one thing to just put an announcement on Facebook or an announcement in a newsletter or a genealogical list or something like that. But if you have either a web page or Facebook has groups, you can make a Facebook group or page where people can come and read what other people have been saying. Okay. Now another thing that we did was we printed out a lot of these charts so that people could actually, not everybody is into adding to your family tree GEDCOM, so we printed out charts like this, and then people would come along and add to them. So that's good in one way because you get information you didn't have before, but unless you are actually watching them, you don't necessarily know who wrote that or how accurate it is. So you have to use that information as a guide to finding out more officially who those people are. You know, occasionally I get to someone that said, take that name off of there. You know, don't like that guy, haven't seen him for 20 years and I don't ever want to see him again. Well, but you can't really do that. So these charts, I started out making them with Family Tree Maker, but I found it has this feature in it that lets you make a very compact tree. And it works well, but it doesn't have those nice lines on it, and I was having to write them on with a pen, and that was taking a long time because I had a lot of charts. So I found this piece of software called Charting Companion, and it reads GEDCOMs, and it gives you lots of different formats of charts, and one that looked very similar to this was one of them, and I started using that instead. So it's all very well to have your family tree on your computer, but when you've got a bunch of people wandering around in the grass on picnic tables, it's hard for them to see. And so I found it was very handy to have a lot of them printed out. Okay. Now the other thing is we would always bring, you're probably familiar with these, family group sheets, because probably most of your relatives don't even know what they are, have never seen them before, but that doesn't mean when they're sitting around at the picnic table after lunch, they aren't willing to fill one out. If you mailed them one, they probably, or even emailed them one, they probably never get around to filling it out and sending it, but if you got them right there, or they can't get away. And actually we did get quite a large number of these at the reunion, these sheets filled out by people. So that was kind of very helpful.
And what I remember most is the day that Althea Topping from Trenton showed up with a family Bible. And it's the only time we ever saw that Bible.
Yes.
And it had a picture in it of my great-grandfather and his brother and sister, and they were triplets.
There's the
born in
picture.
Manvers, those books I was showing you, but we've not found any kind of birth notices. 1864 is too soon.
And they all serve.
Oh, there they are. Yeah, there's
Yes.
the lady who brought that.
So his dad's great grandfather and the matching brother from the Berry group had a sister as well, and they were triplets. So one of the things that's interesting about pictures from this era is that it's hard to get babies to stay still, so often they would like tie their heads down or something. And even if the kids stayed still, their eyes would go like okay, and so the photographers would draw in the eyeballs afterwards. And then the photographs would fade, and then they'd all look like little devils with black eyeballs. Okay.
Either that or it was totally accurate.
Oh, yeah. I guess the main things that I wanted to emphasize is you need to choose your scope. Okay, you have to figure out how the finances will work, and the simplest way, if you don't know how many people are coming, is to just do something inexpensive. Have the people bring their own lunch. If it's don't organize a banquet or something, and then put out a donation box. Okay, so if not very many people come, you probably need to be prepared to have it for it to have cost you a bit of money one way or another. You're making displays, or you may have had to rent a place or something like that. But it shouldn't be a lot of money, especially now when it doesn't cost us all that money for stamps and photocopying and things like that. So, and it really increased our family trees. Not on the ancestor side so much, but on the descendant side. And the other thing that it did is it put us in touch with a large number of genealogists. A lot of them only came once because they just wanted to see what we're doing, But there are people who came from as far away as California and Alberta and the East Coast, and these people came, and ever after that, if they came across anything they thought might pertain to our line, they would send it to us to contribute to our. So sometimes even the people that aren't related to you are good people to know if they've got similar names to yours. And I found it very worthwhile, but I think we got a little carried away that time when we went from just cousins to everybody in North America. You know, maybe we should have. So after that, what we did was we named the furthest back ancestor and said descendants of were hosting it, but anyone else was welcome to come too. Okay.
Now we'll go back to and Nancy has a question.
Well, how frequently do you do the DeLong?
We were doing it every 2 years, but we've stopped. We got tired. So for the last 6 or 7 years, we haven't done it.
Well, it wasn't just that. It's now that the parks and the cities are demanding that you sign waivers and pay extra money to, I guess, for cleanup later on. It was getting expensive, and the liability was being dropped back on the organizers, so that was another reason. But when we first started it, it was, well, I just remembered how much fun we had getting together, aunts and uncles and cousins, somewhere, and just having a picnic. And we hardly, after that, visited each other's houses. There were too many kids growing up in there, and people got busy. I just wanted to experience having reconnection with my cousins.
Another thing that we did was we brought pictures that we had discovered of people in the area where we were holding the reunion that we were hoping people would be able to identify. For instance, this is a picture of the Ovaltine girls from 1942. Well, we only know the name of one of those Ovaltine girls. I forget now. One of Van Vance is in there.
Bottom center is Ruth DeLong.
Okay.
My dad's sister, his only sister.
But the Ovaltine place was in Peterborough, so we thought that if we brought it there, somebody might identify them, and I think somebody did name 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know, but it was just something of general interest that anybody might find.
That's in Peterborough at the corner of
Monaghan
Lansdowne.
and Lansdowne.
Yeah, Monaghan and Lansdowne.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing with that building now.
So here are a couple of genealogists that came from a long distance, and we're very happy to go through our files and look at everything and take notes.
Oops, I keep forgetting to turn the camera.
But these days, we'd probably scan things, right, and send them. But sometimes, you know, people always have 10 times as much stuff that they haven't got around to scanning and putting on the internet as the stuff that they have got around to. So sometimes if you go poking around through people's, you know, packages of things that maybe they found but they didn't relate to their family, but you might find something. So they were having a good time.
We have a family reunion every 5 years for the Krauses in Napanee. And it's, we pay to the Kraus Family Foundation, I guess, $10 to be a member.
Yes.
And that helps to fund and provide. We go to a big park there, Riverside Park in Napanee.
So is it people that are related to a particular branch of the family, or is it like a one-name society?
It's related to the Kraus, John Kraus and down.
Oh, yes,
Anyone.
okay, so descendants of a specific couple.
Couple, yes.
Okay, yeah, so.
How does Napanee treat you as far as
It's fine. We get the use of the whole park for a certain period of time,
good?
which is pretty good.
Well, that's Riverview Park in Peterborough, that one.
How far afield did you go for having your reunion?
We had them all in Peterborough, either Beavermead or...
No, we had one in
Port
Port Perry, and we had one in Innisfil Township. There's a park, Springville Park, I think, up there, because of Dan's cousin with the 14 children. She had 14 children, and about a year apart, and then she decided that her husband, who's kind of like to drink, a little, maybe she was tired of him or dealing with him, and she kicked him out.
It's a family talent, I'm afraid.
She kicked him out. And so then she has 14 children, so she went and took a secretarial course, and she got 2/3 of the job, because with the 14 children, that's all she could manage. So the 3 oldest would take the babies to the daycare on their way to school, and then the others just went themselves. And then she would get home about 2 o'clock, and this is what she told us. She would get home about 2 o'clock, and she would cook something that would, like a roast or soup or stew, something that would bubble away by itself for a while. And then she would have about 20 minutes to read the paper before the kids came in. And then she'd line them all up from smallest to biggest, and they had 2 minutes each to tell her about their day, and then it was dinner time. So she had no trouble organizing a family reunion. Okay. Anyway, are there any questions about that?
Well, I can tell you one thing not to do at a family reunion.
Oh, yes.
1984, we had a huge day 4 reunion, close to 500 people there.
Yes.
We poisoned half of us.
Oh, my goodness.
Half of us got food poisoning.
Well,
Something like that.
So it was a potluck and everybody ate something?
It was one of the Kingston restaurants out on.
Oh, a restaurant. Oh, you had it catered?
Yeah, it was catered.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I don't think that would happen very often.
50% of us came down.
If everybody brings their own food, then you can't complain. They can't
No,
complain.
that's right.
Yes.
We have,
We ate Saturday, Sunday morning.
the Grahams have had a family picnic since 1922, and it started in a house, a farm, and then it graduated to the Lindsay Fairgrounds, and last year we were up at the Goodwood Hall. We've moved around to different places, but we have a hall, and the game's outside, but the food is served inside. Everybody brings food, and we share the food.
Now, you were telling me that you were having a harder time getting people to come out.
Yeah, we're struggling.
And it seems to me that it kind of goes in waves. There have been a number of different people in various parts of Canada, that have organized along reunions, and they would go for a while and then quit. Then somebody over here would start one a few years later. And it seems people, well, first of all, the people organizing it get tired, and there's not always somebody that wants to take over. But also, as you were pointing out, as the older people are no longer healthy enough to come, then the younger people don't always feel that they bother to show up. And then when they get older, maybe they'll want to. But there's an age that people go through where they have stuff to do, right? So sometimes they just die out, not because you did anything wrong. Yes.
I've been the treasurer since 1980. I'm getting tired.
But rich.
The way we're doing it, we didn't have to have a treasure. Yes.
Carry over.
All gets to be quite
My comments
expensive.
on my family reunion. that
Yes.
We've been having them every second year on an official basis since the 1970s.
Yes.
And before that, we had a small group. It was more like a family meeting. The whole family met at somebody's house before that.
Yes.
Back into the 50s. But we always appoint at the at the reunion the people who are going to, or the 2 people who are going to organize the next reunion.
Well, that's a good idea.
But we pretty much always have it in the same place.
Yes.
And it kind of entails a weekend.
Yes.
The reunion is actually only a supper plus all-day activities at a hall.
Yes.
But there's 2 people who either volunteer or are volunteered for the next reunion.
Well, if you do it in the same place each time, it simplifies the organization, for sure.
It simplified it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And the only difficulty we had was because there's only probably 100 or 120 people potential
Yes.
attendees, plus side branches somewhere. But they're all over the place, from northern Ontario, eastern northern Ontario to western northern Ontario to western Ontario up.
So it's a lot of
Yeah.
traveling.
So we have it up in Muskoka every year at a campsite, or at a resort site with cabins, so people can come for the weekend.
Yes.
And then we have the hall in the little community rented for the day, and we've done that every year we've changed resorts a couple times out of necessity, but it's worked well and people have actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
Well, it certainly helps if you are going to have one where people are staying overnight, if you hold it in a place where the accommodation is not too expensive, too. So,
Well,
yeah.
in the area where we are, there's sort of the low-grade cabins.
You can choose, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
and then right beside it, there's the sort of upper-grade cabin, and down the road is the hotel, and some fancy B&Bs.
But you've done one thing that helps in that you've held it in a place where there's something to do besides, because not everyone who comes will want to sit and look through family trees.
Yeah. And
So there's something else
there's
to
a
do.
days, there's a Friday night activities and days activities, and something that's crash for the kids, and there's the annual baseball game where
Yes.
the old people get there.
Like going to summer camp.
Yeah, the old people get themselves, break their legs and things like that.
Yes.
Well, we're trying to hang in until 2022, and that'll be 100 years, and then I'm gonna give the retirement package to somebody and say, you do the finances.
Oh,
But picnics are not the younger age in thing to do.
no,
They don't, it's not cool.
no.
We're actually.
We do a barbecue. We do a barbecue.
Getting
Yeah.
an increase.
So it doesn't matter what.
I better stop
All
because
the next generation.
we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so, anyway, there's some stuff here to look at if you want to, as you're going out. Okay, so you want your thing back again? That one. There.
Well, thank you, Ann, that was very informative. I have to admit, we've only ever had one family reunion when my kids were little. My uncle and one of his cousins did it, and it never happened again. Nobody stepped up to the plate. So, don't forget the OGS annual conference. The header seems to have disappeared. It is going to be at the London Convention Center this year, June 21st and 23rd. Registration is open. Go on the ogs.on.ca website, and the speakers and all their lectures are up there for you to look at to see if you want to go. I have to say a big thanks to Ann. She's volunteered to man our table at the vendor hall for us. Upcoming meetings, we've got the DNA Special Interest Group, March the 20th, on the upper floor. And hopefully by then I will have had a good chance to play with the Ancestry DNA tools and the MyHeritage DNA tool, which you didn't hear about yet. And boy, our pictures really aren't coming through. 2nd of April, Cher Latou's. That's not her title. She hasn't given us a title for her lecture yet, but it is going to be concerning her Irish trip. And I think there's a little story of serendipity in there too. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I spoke with Cher this morning, and she hadn't prepared anything yet.
Of course not.
Yeah.
She's like me, it's the last day.
You may have something to do with Cornwall in there too. Today is St. Piran's Day.
Saint who?
Piran. St. Piran, the
Piran.
patron saint of Cornwall.
Okay, I don't have Cornish, so I can't relate at this point. Okay, and Sandra McNamara is a new speaker for us. She's going to be coming the 7th of May, and her lectures are more like a half an hour at length, so we're getting 2 for the price of 1. Researching through Facebook, and she's also going to talk about tricks and trades of a genealogy sleuth. And then the rebook of today's lecture, The Family History Reno Project by Bob Dawes, will be in June. So that's our upcoming meetings. We got 4 or 5 minutes if someone has a brick wall question they want to ask us. Now's your chance. If not, you have to bring something for the next meeting.
That's your homework.
That's your homework, along with downloading the Family Search Family History app. Okay, and we're on to the 50-50 draw.
We have $17.50.
Each or divided by 2?
Well, no, that's the price.
That's the price, $17.50, okay.
I'd like to take the name and number. Thank you. Okay, last 3 numbers are 151.
Great. It's whoever was after me again.
You said that.
Just like last month.
Oh, I hope it wasn't me.
It probably was. You learned.
But I did this last month.
Yes.
you did.
I'm 150. So it's whoever got
And
it.
she said 151.
Well, she's checking her
Oh,
number.
it's not me.
It's not you, okay.
So you must have 151. Did you read me the front? It's
415-151.
Not me.
Well, who's got 152? Because it's got to be, if you bought 3 tickets, it's got to be part of it.
Maybe's part of it.
I
forgot I had 3 tickets.
You called it.
It's hard giving away money these days.
It's hard, yes.
Going once.
Yeah, right.
Somebody's gotta have it.
We should put a time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Timer on
You
it.
snooze, you lose, eh?
Okay,
One more, I forgot. That's 3 tickets.
there's our contact information if anybody needs to get a hold of us. And good night and safe home, as it says at the bottom there. Drive carefully. Hopefully we haven't had a snowstorm as we've been inside here.
Yes, I hope so.
We donated to Kingston, Belleville.
They can have it. Yeah. They can keep their stuff.